Welcome to the Seahawks Squad Show. I'm Anderson Hirst. The Seahawks have yet another beatdown and another dominant first half.
And my name is Rob Rang, and I'm going to talk about how Sam Darnold was excellent yet again, despite only completing 10 passes in another 20-plus point victory for the Seahawks.
Hey 12, it's the Seahawks Squad. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
What up, 12s? Welcome to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Rob Rang with you. Appreciate you hanging out with us right after another dominant victory for the Seattle Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals by a score of 44-22. It just kind of feels like a similar script that we've seen the last couple of weeks, where the first half was so good from both sides of the ball that you can just kind of cruise in that second half a little bit. And just rely on that running game, use the defense, which again is taking steps and steps and steps forward to becoming that dominant force that we have expected it to be all year long. I got Rob Rang with me today, just us two. I know normally with the Squad Show we have 3 or 4 guys, but lots of schedules going around everywhere. Corbin's at the game. Chris is out today. Turbo is doing the broadcast on the radio, if you guys heard him. So congratulations to him for that. So it'll have to be just Rob and I. But I'm excited for this because I get to pick the brain of Mr. Rob Rang about a 7-2 football team, which is exciting to talk about. First place in the NFC West. And I'm very interested in what Rob had to say in that opening there, because I think at first glance, a lot of people would think that maybe this was one of Sam Darnold's worst games as a Seattle Seahawk, just considering the turnovers and the lack of counting stats, so to speak. But I'm curious to what he has to say regarding his play today. But just your initial thoughts on this game, Rob Rang, as we break down a 7-2 Seahawks football team.
Yeah, I think that it's important to kind of just talk about Sam Darnold here for a moment, because obviously most of the conversation is going to be on the defense. Unbelievable performance by them. 2 defensive scores, of course, both by DeMarcus Lawrence. The running game, the injury to the starting center, Jalen Sandell, what we've heard hopefully from Mike McDonald's press conference immediately after game, if there's any kind of update here. And I also think that, again, it is important to kind of talk about the quarterback, Sam Darnold. And I think that just the accuracy of his downfield passing is one of the reasons why that Seattle has had as much success in running the football as well as moving the ball up and down the field, in the passing game, of course. I mean, we all know the quarterback is going to be critical in the passing game, obviously. But at the same time, I thought for Seattle to come out as aggressively as they did, march right down the field at the beginning of the game and get that first touchdown, I think it just kind of set the tone. And then Arizona had no choice but to kind of play back on their heels a little bit, that create a little bit of the running game that Seattle took full advantage of, rushing for a season-high total in this particular football game, rushing touchdowns by Charbonnet as well as by George Halani. A.J. Barner continuing to do the Seahawks scrum to beautiful effectiveness. And so, again, I think that this is one of those few games, Anders, where it's going to be easy to overlook what Sam Darnold did. But when you're completing 10 or 12 passes, when you only attempt 3 passes in the second half, again, I think that it is just a statement about how much the Seahawks were dominating this game from the outset. And you used the word cruised to the victory. That's absolutely what it felt like to me, that they were in cruise control. This was all about just to running the ball down Arizona's throat and running the clock down to the final zeros.
Yeah, it really felt like to me that going into this year, this kind of performance is more of what I expected in wins for the Seahawks team, where you have a 1-2 punch of just Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet, who both look good today in their own kind of bursts. In their own ways. It's running the football. It's absolute dominant defense, creating turnovers, scoring touchdowns even on the defensive side of the ball, and then not having Sam Darnold to do a whole lot. That's what I honestly expected this team to look like if they were going to be a 7-2 football team, which they are at this point. Up until now, it's been very much not that case. I mean, yes, your defense has been good, and it has definitely been the stronger side. Well, maybe not definitely the stronger side of the football, but it has lived up to expectations. I'll say that. But Sam Darnold's been explosive. He hasn't necessarily had any sort of reins on him in his downfield passing ability, and that's been the stronger side of the offense as opposed to the running game. Today was the opposite. It was great to see the running game be so effective. It was funny. I was kind of watching the second half alongside on the red zone with the San Francisco LA game at the same time. And I saw two teams in LA and Seattle who we face each other next week will be a huge matchup. We'll get to that towards the end of the show. But I saw two teams that were just ramming the football down the opponent's throats, especially in that second half. And it's fun to watch, honestly. Like, yeah, you love to see the high scoring, high octane passing game where you can throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and stuff like that in big comeback victories. But when you can be as dominant on the ground as the Seahawks were today, it's going to open up so much. And I like what you said, actually, because so many times people can look at the running game and think that's what's setting everything up. Oh, so the running sets up the pass. It happens the other way around a lot, especially with the Seahawks team. I think we just mentioned that up until now has been a pretty effective passing offense. And that, I think, is what's really opening up the run a little bit. Explain how that works out, how that dynamic kind of played itself out today.
Well, I think that we just saw with how effective the Seahawks were with the play action passing and the deep ball over the top of Jackson Smith and Jigba to, again, just establish who was the big brother, in this particular divisional rivalry. And so, again, I think that it forced, to me, the strength of the Arizona Cardinals is their safety play as well as their defensive line. It forced the Arizona Cardinals defensive line to basically get into kind of a pass rush mindset where they're not going to be, really trying to hold up at the point of attack as much as they are going to be trying to get upfield, get some pressure on Sam Darnold. You saw how effective they could be. As you mentioned, Anders, I mean, in some ways, certainly statistically with only 10 completions, for 150 yards or whatever it was, 178 yards for Sam Darnold, the one touchdown, which of course, again, was on the opening drive and then otherwise was held out of the end zone through the interception, had 2 fumbles that are, he gets blamed in the stat book for them. But at the same time, I think that it forced the Cardinals safeties to play back and recognize that just how effective that Seattle's passing attack could be, which was a question mark, of course, when you don't have a guy like a Torrey Horton, as dynamic he has been on the football field. Then everybody is very curious to see what number 22, Rashid Shaheed, is going to be able to provide. So they were on their heels in that regard as well. They had 2 of their top corners were out of this particular game, and Max Melton and the rookie Will Johnson. And so I do think that right off the bat, Seattle sent the message that we are going to still attack over the top. And then once the Cardinals kind of adjusted to that with their defensive mindset of their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, that's when you start to pepper him in with the running game. That's where you saw Cooper Kupp get his reception where he, rumbles down for 60 more yards after the catch. And Seattle start to use, again, their running backs to as effective as they were. Again, when you're running for almost 200 yards, I think Seattle officially came up with 198 rushing yards, but that's taking into account the 4 yards that Drew Lock had on those kneel downs.
It was 200 yards.
Yeah, 200 rushing yards in an NFL game, I think is, again, for a team that some out there suggest is not a very good running team. The last time Seattle played Arizona was their second highest rushing total of the season. This one takes the cake on that regard. So again, to me, considering the fact that Seattle had injury at the center position, had to make that transition and still ran as effectively as they did. This was it's like the Washington game just this last week. The score says that it was a blowout. It was even more of a blowout than the score suggested.
Yep, I think, and we'll take one more macro view before we take a break. I want to break down the offense and then the defense after that. We'll get to our player of the game later in the episode, and then we'll look forward ahead to LA next week because I won't be able to hear from Rob until after the game once again. So I want to get his thoughts on what could be an NFC championship preview, I think it's looking like these are two of the two best teams in the NFC at this point in the season. But do you have any sort of worries? Not worries, just what's your concern level? Because when you're so good in the first half, and that's what it's been the last 3 days. I have a stat here. I just pulled it up. In the last 3 games, the Seahawks have outscored their opponents 83-20 in the first half. When you're that good in the first half, and there's going to be just an element of, all right, we basically have the game won at this point. Don't have to step on their throats, so to speak. We don't have to win 58-0. Let's just kind of cruise to the finish line, which has happened the last couple of weeks. Do you have any sort of concern level at all with the I don't want to say even that Arizona got back in the game, but just the difference in performance from the second half compared to the first half?
I don't have much of a concern that way. I think it's a good analogy you used there, Anders, as far as stepping on the throat. Obviously, if you just think about, taking a step onto something, you're off balance for a moment because you only have your weight on one foot. And I think that's, kind of a handy analogy to use with what I think that happens basically at halftime when the Seahawks or any other NFL team are just up that much. It's just a natural human reaction to lose some of the intensity and the other team, frankly, to get a little bit pissed off. Yep. And the pride to be, kind of rekindled in this case. And the CBS cameras actually caught Buda Baker and Calais Campbell trying to rile up the defense to show a little backbone in this particular football game. So I did think that between the pride of the Arizona Cardinals, the obvious letdown, it's just going to be a natural reaction to that kind of a dominant start to the football game. And then just the fact that you knew that Arizona was basically going to just go out there and attack including on fourth downs, continue to go forward on fourth down. So I did think that Arizona was going to try and come back and make this a little bit more of a game. I don't have a lot of concern and the reason why, Anders, the biggest thing is just because the level of competition, of course, is going to improve. When you face the LA Rams, you face the San Francisco 49ers, you face the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, 3 of the best teams in all of the NFL, in this next couple of months, then I don't expect an awful lot of blowouts. And so I think that this is allowing Seattle to play some backups, which I think is valuable reps for all of them. I do think that it can be a little concerning from a fan perspective to watch these games like, oh my goodness, here they come back again. But I also thought that to me, as a former offensive lineman, myself as a player at the high school level, is terrible. And I wasn't that much better as offensive line coach at the high school level either, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I love the fact that Seattle did have that drive in the fourth quarter where they basically said, look, we're not going to throw the ball this entire drive. It's just going to be running the ball. And they still were effective in marching down the field 70 plus yards to get themselves a field goal that basically after that, it was kind of like the game was truly salted away. I mean, Arizona clearly felt so. They went down to Keaton Slovis as their third string quarterback at that point. So again, I understand why there might be some concern out there for some fans. I don't share that concern. I think that this was clearly the better team and they proved it in every which way possible.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that you can look at it both ways, right? Number one, they're not going to be in as many blowouts because, like you said, the teams you're going to face are better. But just from my perspective, I'm also thinking, hey, if you won't have that much of a lead after the first half. So if you have any sort of letdown in that second half, you're going to put yourself behind the 8 ball a little bit, right? So either way, I trust this coaching staff to have these guys in the right frame of mind to play. We've been proven that they definitely know what they're doing here. This is a 7-2 football team that has looked probably like the most dominant team in the NFL, honestly, through at least the last month of the season. And if you take away one bad defensive effort against Tampa Bay and then a week 1 kind of toss-up game against San Francisco, which I think we can look back on as like, we can almost throw that one out because this is a completely different football team. I think this is one of the top teams in the NFL. They're showing that they're the class of what it's just a different class of between these guys and an Arizona team who isn't a bottom feeder. They're not the the Browns or the Jets or any of those guys, right? The Saints. But we're seeing how big of a gap there is in a league where there's so much parity between the mediocre teams in the NFL and the elite teams. And the Seattle Seahawks are one of those elite teams. This is the Seahawks Squad Show. I'm Anderson Hirst. Rob Rang's with me. We're breaking down a 44-22 win over the Arizona Cardinals to get the season sweep over Arizona. Just a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, when we come back, let's talk about the offensive side of the ball, because I actually was kind of going to go into this episode with a little bit of all right, is there any sort of concern with Sam Darnold here? But Rob quickly talked me off the ledge with that one. We'll talk about his play. We'll talk about the running game, what impressed him today. We'll go over the couple of turnovers there as well, because I think we should break those down to kind of give you guys a good idea of what's going on here. But we'll be right back. Seahawks win this one, go to 7-2 on the season. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back to Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Rob Rang with you. 44-22 victory over the Arizona Cardinals at home. And another thing I forgot to mention at the top of the show, does it seem like the home field advantage is working itself back here, Rob?
I think it does. I mean, obviously, when you have a victory like this one, then it makes things a lot easier. When you have the fireworks that you have, the JSN long touchdown, you have the two DeMarcus Lawrence, the fumble runs for touchdowns, then certainly Lumen Field is going to be rocking. But at this end, obviously, the Arizona Cardinals coming off of not so impressive in the midst of a not so impressive season. Cardinals fans aren't known necessarily for traveling that well, but at the same time, it was good to see an awful lot of blue on the television screen rather than Arizona Cardinals red. Yeah,
I think I'm with you there. And I've always been with the whole home field advantage stuff and looking at their home road splits. I've always been it's a chicken or egg situation, right? If you have a better home field advantage, then you start to win more games at home. I'm kind of the opposite. If you start to win more games at home, especially in this kind of facet, you'll kind of generate more hype around the team. More people will want to be there from Seattle, not sell their tickets, all that stuff. So I think the more that this team continues to win, again, 7-2, first place in the NFC West right now, looking like one of the best teams in the NFL, it's going to be kind of a hotter and hotter ticket for Seattle sports fans to be there to watch this team, to be part of that Lumen Field home field advantage. And I think that's just going to continue to grow, especially if the Seahawks go and take care of business next week against the LA Rams. All right. Seahawks win this one 44-22, but 14 of those points were not by the offense. It was by the defense. So let's evaluate the offensive side of the ball first. I want you to expand a little bit on Sam Darnold's play, because I think, like you said at the top of the show, it can be really taken out of context. You see, he just had 10 completions. He had a fumble. He had an interception. Wasn't super, only one touchdown pass. It seemed like, the running game and the defense carried him today. Is that true, Rob?
I think that it is true. I mean, the
Okay.
running game, again, 200 rushing yards and the defense being as dominant as it was. I mean, they almost matched all of the Arizona scores themselves,
Yep.
But at the same time, I also think that the Sam Darnold, when he feels protected, is obviously throwing the ball as accurately and with as much poise as anybody in all of the NFL. That said, this is one of the concerns, and I understand if fans are concerned about Sam Darnold. He just doesn't have the spatial awareness that I think that some of the other great quarterbacks have. And so, if you are one of those, and there's so many people, of course, are going to refer to the last time that Sam Darnold played against the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, he was a member of the Minnesota Vikings at that point, and was sacked all those times, and basically, it's one of the reasons why the Seahawks were able to get him at a bit of a discount in free agency. That to me is concerning here. That now that you referred to the home loss against the San Francisco 49ers to start the season, of course, it was a similar play in that the right tackle got pushed into his lap and basically the ball squirts free. And we see the same thing happen here. So I would like to see Sam Darnold show a little bit more of an awareness of the pocket collapsing around him. Yeah. At the same time, it's hard to fault a quarterback who just feels confident in the pocket and is not willing just to freak out. I don't think he's seeing ghosts. I think it's the opposite. Seeing ghosts, of course, is the statement that he infamously said, when he was a member of the New York Jets and kind of got kicked out of town there. I think that instead it's that he feels so confident in the pocket. He feels such confidence in his offensive line that he is looking to take advantage of a 6'3.5" frame, the big body that he has. He's a strong guy. He's able to kind of, fight through traffic a little bit, keep his eyes downfield. And at times he's made some incredible plays by, keeping his eyes up. I would at times like to see him drop his eyes a little bit just to recognize that the pocket is collapsing around him. And then maybe throw the ball away at times or, hopefully look to dink and dunk his way. But at the same time, I also think that we see some kind of Yosemite Sam here. He wants to go deep. And so I think that you just have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. That this is going to be a double-edged sword. Sometimes there's going to be some plays in which he gives up the big plays because of his unwillingness to recognize the pass rush coming at him. But at the same time, if you're going to criticize him for that, then you got to be, certainly give him credit when he makes those big, deep throws, like the one that he got for a touchdown to JSN to start the game.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good way to put it because these interceptions that he's throwing, I think almost all of them have been tipped. There's been very rarely just a poor throw from him or a poor decision from him. And that was, again, the case today. It was a weird situation where it hit AJ Barner's helmet, I think, before it was caught. And then even the one of the fumbles as well, like he is nowhere in front of him. He can't see anyone coming. He's about to make a throw and his hand, the ball gets hit from behind and it's just a fumble and there's nothing he can do differently in that situation. So these aren't turnovers that are like, what is he doing sort of situation. But I think what you said is right because especially towards the end of last season, Geno Smith felt like he was doing the dink and dunk a little too much. Of course, a lot of the talk about his, clause in his contract about the completion percentage and him wanting to be above that number. So there was a little bit less of a willingness to throw the ball down the field. We're having almost the opposite here with Sam Darnold, who wants to make plays. And I still feel like he does a really good job of doing that in a measured way where he still feels like I can make this play, but even if I can't, I'm not going to make the mistake. I'll take the sack or whatever. But I think the one thing that you can say that he needs to be better at, and I've been kind of a proponent of this for a long time, in using the running backs in the passing game a little bit, get your checkdowns, right? And maybe that's a play calling design to have that readily available for him. But it feels like that is a little underutilized at this point in time where we can avoid some of those mistakes if there is a safety valve, so to speak, instead of always trying to push it down the field. Although I like that mentality in my quarterback. So I don't want to play with it too much because it's been successful up until now. But what about the running game, Rob? This is one of those situations where I think both running backs, it feels like it's either been Charbonnet or Ken Walker who has had success. Today was one of the games where I think they both look good in their own ways today. What made it successful? What's your evaluation of where they're at right now in terms of the running game?
Well, I think with the running game, this was a perfect illustration. And you obviously got to throw George Holani in there as well. Of just the different styles and how effective they can be. I was kind of sad for Kenneth Walker III in a moment in this game because he had one of the more dynamic, like 10-yard little scamper runs that we have seen, flashed throughout this season and his entire career, where he was going on a run that was supposed to go to the right. He immediately cut left, and they wound up calling a holding penalty. I believe it was on Nick Callerup, the rookie tight end. And I just feel bad for the blockers. Again, as a former offensive lineman and offensive line coach, if you are asking your blockers to block one way and then the back behind you, of course, you can't see what's happening behind you, runs the other way, then you could theoretically be called for a holding penalty just about every single time. It used to be one of the things that was maddening about why Russell Wilson was often, would make some incredible plays, but why the Seahawks consistently were among the teams that gave up the most sacks in the NFL, because Wilson would run all around. And then again, he would have, there would be holding penalties called on the offensive line when they were basically doing their job, the play that was called. I think that Kenneth Walker III creates some of that havoc for defensive players, but also for offensive linemen. And it's one of the reasons why he has struggled with consistency. So it does feel like Zach Charbonnet is the safer guy. And he just runs with such great forward lean and power and determination. Kenneth Walker definitely shows flashes of that. And he is clearly the more dynamic guy. He can make people miss in a phone booth. And George Holani has a little bit of that as well. He's almost like a combination of the two. I mean, he just keeps his legs churning through contact so well. He runs angry for a shorter back. I love the spin move. I love the stiff arm that he used to get that first touchdown. So again, I think that Seattle has these different flavors, so to speak, at running back that really keeps the defense on its heels. And I thought that we got a chance to see that in fine form in today's game.
Yeah, I think, and I thank you for mentioning George Holani, because that burst on the touchdown run, man, what, like that kind of, he looked like he was shot out of a cannon there. So that was awesome to see. Good for him for getting involved as well. And again, like, we can look at the numbers for Sam Darnold and expect more from him, but when the running game is working as well as it is, and especially when you have that lead, and you can kind of cruise to the finish line just by putting the ball on the ground, or not putting it on the ground, running the football, I should say. You'll be able to get a lot of victories that way. Quick little stat from PFF here. Most points scored in the first half of a game this year. Any team. First was the Seahawks versus the Saints in week 3, 38 points. Second, Seahawks versus Cardinals in week 10, 38 points. I guess tied for first, you should say. Third was 34 points, Vikings versus Bengals in week 3. And then fourth, Seahawks versus Commanders in week 9. So 3 of the 4 top scoring first halves have been the Seattle Seahawks in 2025, which is wild. And 2 of those the last couple weeks. So wow, it's good to see when your game script is working this well. And in the first half, you can be as dominant as you were. You can kind of cruise to a lot of victories that way by, they say you can't win a game in the first half. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you absolutely can. So, okay, part of that dominance, and I think, let's be honest, most of that dominance was the other side of the football. Just incredible showing defensively. This unit continues to climb and climb and climb, and it's peaking at, I don't even want to say it's peaking at. It doesn't feel like it is, because Julian Love still hasn't come back. Jaron Reed's out right now. So lots to like on the defensive side of the ball. Let's break it all down. I want to get an unsung hero from Rob Rang. Well, I mentioned player of the game. Pretty easy player of the game. It'll be DeMarcus Lawrence, 2 touchdowns defensively. It's tough to kind of really top him, but let's do an unsung hero on the defensive side of the ball from my guy Rob Rang. We'll do that on the other side of the break here on the Seahawks Squad Show. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's SAD, software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want it to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill in the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnfl. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnfl. That's rippling.com/lockedonnfl for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson, Hirst, Rob Rang with you. Seahawks win this one 44-22 and sweep the Arizona Cardinals in their 2-game slate in 2025. They go to 7-2 on the season and have I don't even want to say a share of the lead of the NFC West. They are in the lead in the NFC West, according to tiebreakers. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball because just absolute dominance on that side. So fun to watch. All 3 levels, really, really good today. The pass rush was excellent. The blitz game was excellent. The secondary was excellent. Just talk about the defensive side of the ball, Rob. Where does your eye go when watching this defensive performance?
Well, I think certainly see DeMarcus Lawrence with a couple of different touchdowns, and you have to kind of start off with him. I don't think that there's any way in which that he knew, what was going on. Unfortunately, the tragic news that Sonic legend and NBA legend Lenny Wilkins had passed away. But I thought that it was fitting that on at least one of DeMarcus Lawrence's touchdowns, he kind of took the ball and did kind of a fadeaway jumper kind of a touch. And so I just thought, again, I don't know that he had any idea, but still, it was a fitting moment in a sad day for a lot of us in the Seattle area. But I think you have to start the conversation with DeMarcus Lawrence. I think you also certainly have to mention the man who forced both of those fumbles, had 2 sacks, Tyrese Knight, who, of course, the only reason he was on the field is because Ernest Jones was injured and held out of this game. So it's one of the things, Anders, that we've been talking about. It's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the Seahawks squad is that when players have been asked to step up, and that they absolutely have. To see players like Ty Okada with Julian Love has been out. And I'm excited for Julian Love to get back onto the field as much as anybody. But at the same time, can we expect him to play any better than what Ty Okada has played? I mean, Okada has been brilliant. Just the physical hitting that we saw in today's game, the pass breakups, obviously the beautiful interception that he had a week ago. I think if we want to talk about kind of an unsung hero, it's hard to call a player who is as productive as Nick Emmanwori was in this game.
Yep.
I mean, 4 pass breakups. It's hard to call that an unsung hero, but I think that he certainly deserves an awful lot of credit, for what he did. And there's a host of other Seahawk defenders that I want to kind of talk about, but I think that you have to kind of start the conversation with those couple of players.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, and if you were watching the game, you saw Nick Emmanwori go out with an injury. He did go back in the game, so he seemed okay. It looks like just a kind of a stinger on his wrist or something. So hopefully that's not a super serious thing. I haven't been refreshing news as quickly as I can. We're waiting to hear the status of Jalen Sundell to see what he's doing. I did see a noticeable, I don't want to say downgrade, but just it was a difference between him and Oluwatimi later in the game. So hopefully Jalen Sundell can figure that out. I'm going to go my unsung hero. And Rob has been kind of the one guy beating this guy's drum, saying he's underrated. He's not getting the respect he deserves. And I finally saw it today. That's Mr. Reek Woolen. He was excellent in coverage. They kept trying to pick on him. It seemed like every single time, whether it was Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, he was blanketing those guys. And I don't have the stats in front of me. I don't know if he gave up any big plays or anything like that. It just seemed to my untrained eye every time that he was thrown to, it was a pass breakup. It was good coverage. He was doing his job excellently. And just a guy that was in a bunch of trade talks, a guy that, you know, in the early part of the season when most of the defense was performing very well, he got his fair share of criticism. And I think he, at least in the last few weeks, has come out the other side the better, because he has been one of the best coverage pieces in Seattle, because it wasn't him that Marvin Harrison juked out for the touchdown and caught the ball over. It was Devin Witherspoon. So I would just want to give a big shout out to Rick Woolen, because if he can find anything close to his rookie year form, and it seems like he's starting to get that back a little bit, get a little more swagger, which is so important at the cornerback position. That can be a huge piece to this defense. And I think it's a reason why this secondary has looked so good these last few weeks, almost unbeatable, because when you have a coverage corner like him, and then Devin Witherspoon doing his thing, you mentioned Nicky Manwari, Josh Jobe has been a revelation this year. And then, like you said, Ty Akata filling in for a Julian Love more than admirably. It just seems like everything kind of is going the right direction for this secondary specifically, but you can talk about the whole defense.
Yeah, I love the fact that you just mentioned Rick Woolen. I mean, I just think that, again, you're just seeing his talent really come to the forefront. You know, obviously, we've all been frustrated with the ups and downs of his career. He just doesn't locate the ball in the air as consistently as perhaps some of the other players who have been playing cornerback all of their life. But people forget this was a former wide receiver in college, and he is still adjusting to the game. Now, again, I mean, we're all impatient. I mean, we want results, and we want them right now. And, you know, and I just still see a guy who has an unbelievable combination of size, speed, and explosiveness. And so you have to be a little bit more willing to kind of, understand there's going to be some plays he's going to give up, but there's also going to be some plays that he can make that nobody else on the planet can. And so it is certainly encouraging to see him playing with more consistency. Again, the CBS cameras, I thought, did a great job. They right before half, their sideline reporter, whose name I apologize, I forget, but she asked Mike McDonald, basically, you know, this is what a great half. You know, what's your plan moving forward through? You know, what's the message you're gonna deliver to your team at halftime? And after he basically said, like, okay, let's finish, let's run the ball. You know, it's paraphrasing, obviously, but the one player that was still out there on the field, walking off the field, and Mike McDonald, the cameras caught him kind of running up and shaking hands with them as they walked into the tunnel together, was Rick Woolen. And you could just see that the mutual admiration between coach and player. And so, as you said before, Anders, the coaching staff deserves an awful lot of credit for this 7-2 start. And I think that Mike McDonald and his defensive coaches, Carl Scott, secondary coach in particular, Adam Durde, defensive coordinator in particular as well, they deserve an awful lot of credit for keeping Rick Woolen focused and seeing his play improve. So one other player I definitely want to mention here, as far as the unsung here, I thought that Drake Thomas, if we're going to mention, Tyrese Knight, I think Drake Thomas, I mean, a couple of those big plays behind the line of scrimmage, that early tackle for loss, I believe it was on 4th down or maybe it was 3rd down to force the punt. Either way, I mean, he is hitting the hole like a running back, and just some of the things in which he was struggling on earlier in the year, he would shoot the gap, but then because he's a little bit undersized, then if ball carriers, were able to get outside of his reach, then they were able to basically run away from him. He is doing a much better job of seeing it, hitting his targets, and then also not lunging so much. So we're not seeing some of the missed tackles that we had saw earlier in the season.
Yeah, and with back to the Rick Woolen conversation, it's been when you see the tools that he has, and then he puts it together in his first year. That's what I think has been so frustrating for fans, and then not seeing that really since then. It's hard to kind of picture in your head, like, he was a Pro Bowl caliber cornerback, almost won Rookie of the Year on the defensive side of the ball. And he's starting to kind of but you're right. It's the consistency. That's the word that I think that needs to continue with him. And as someone who, again, this is what his 4th year as a cornerback, I think. So imagine any of these other pros, what their 4th year of their position was. Maybe some in high school, maybe a couple in college, but he's doing it in the NFL at the highest level as a starter. So he's going through the lumps at this level, and I think, like I said, he's coming out the other side of it, which is great to see.
And I wanted to kind of follow up that thought just for a second on Rick Woolen. I think some of it is, again, because he had this is actually his 5th year now as a corner, because he was, this is 4th year in the NFL, and then he played the 1 year at UT San Antonio at corner. But one of the things I think that happened his rookie season is I think there was an awful lot of NFL teams out there that were very skeptical about his ability to play corner at a high level. So every quarterback would basically challenge him, and they threw so many jump balls and he had some easier opportunities to make some big plays. Once he established himself as a legitimate ball hawk, now there's a lot of teams that don't even want to mess with him whatsoever. And so it's only when they're in desperation mode, it's late in the 4th quarter, and they're going to throw those kind of jump balls. They're going to throw those back shoulder fades, because he has shown, at times he does kind of lose track of the ball. I think his mind does wander. I think, frankly, he gets bored at times. And so I do think that's some of the reason why. He's just not getting as many opportunities to get the interceptions. But I think that's also making Seattle's defense better. It's one of the reasons why Josh Jobe is getting the ball, is getting thrown a little bit more his way, and he is getting his opportunities to make some plays. I'd like to see Josh Jobe, frankly, turn some of these pass breakup opportunities into more interceptions. He's made some, but not quite as many as I thought that he made a year ago. And so I still think that there is meat on the bone, so to speak, for Seattle's defensive backfield to turn some of these pass breakup opportunities into more interceptions.
I like it. I like it a lot. One other aspect I want to mention about the defense before we move on is 3 goal line stands. How about that? Now I realize Arizona's down. Maybe if it's tie game, or maybe a 1-score game, they're kicking field goals in those situations instead of going for touchdowns. But still, most teams would have scored at least one of those, but no, 0 for 3 in the goal to go situations for Arizona today. I think it's a huge development, especially if you're going to continue to dominate the line of scrimmage. It's just going to be a big weapon moving forward, knowing that you have the ability to stop teams when they get inside the red zone. So talk about how important that is.
Well, I just think that it's indicative of a team that really believes in defending every blade of grass. And I thought that it was kind of perfectly encapsulated with the play actually by Nehemiah Pritchett.
Yes.
I mean, that was a touchdown, I believe, to Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yes.
He's got it. And instead, Pritchett has the wherewithal as he's falling down to punch the ball one more time to knock that free. For that to be your 4th, 5th corner on your roster, again, I think that is a statement about the quality of the talent of the player, certainly, but also the coaching and just the mindset that you're not getting this play on me. And so again, I think that is something that is kind of catching on with everybody on Seattle's roster. It's not just your superstars, it's the backups and the guys at 3rd or 4th or 5th on the depth chart. They're also playing that same type of mentality. So to me, that was one of the most exciting things about this game. I mean, I felt like just the way that this entire team, the offense, defense, special teams, continues to just paste their opponents. Again, to me, is one of the most exciting things. I know that Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and in this case, DeMarcus Lawrence, are going to be the ones that are going to get all the hype. But I think that, again, this is it's an entire 53-man roster, and even the ready squad, as Mike McDonald likes to call the practice squad. I think that all of them are beaten to their same drummer right now, and that's one of the biggest reasons why they are basically as good as anybody in all of the NFL, frankly.
Yeah, and you're seeing why depth is so important with this team, and I think Seahawks more than anyone else. I don't think they don't necessarily win because of their stars. They win because of star plays that a lot of these guys make, but they don't have to rely on 1, 2, or even 3 guys to just wow the stat sheet or wow, fans or anyone who's watching the game to carry them to victory. It's everyone doing their job, rowing the right direction, all together. That's a sign of really good coaching. That's a sign of really, really good coaching. One slight negative on the defense, it just seems like even when you have as dominant of a performance as you do, there's going to be one area where you have to let some yards happen and some touchdowns as well. It just seems to always be the tight end, Rob.
Yeah. I think that's kind of just a function of the defense, because obviously if you allow an opponent, a lot of the plays to the tight end are going to be in the middle of the field, of course.
Sure.
And that's where the majority of the defenders are. And so I think that's just kind of the way you design the play is that the quarterback is going to, most likely be looking straight up the middle as the pass rush is getting to him. If it's a good quarterback, and Jacoby Brissett's a solid quarterback, that if there's outside rush, again, he's going to step into the middle. His eyes are most likely going to be looking in the middle. I think that's something that is similar to the way Pete Carroll's defense usually push the ball towards the tight end. The opponents, Mike McDonald, doing basically the same things. And just so happens that Seattle happens to be playing in an NFC West division that has statistically the best tight end in football in Trey McBride. And then historically, one of the great tight ends of all time, George Kittle as well. And the LA Rams have some good ones as well. One thing, I know that we were going to be looking towards the LA Rams.
Yes.
Next week's opponent. But before we get to that, I do want to make sure that we kind of acknowledge the special teams as well.
Okay.
Jason Myers, 3 for 3 on field goals, beats now Stephen Hauschka for the most field goals in team history. So he certainly deserves, a tip of the cap. And then Rashid Shaheed, while it wasn't dynamic returns, I think that his speed on the return game as a punt returner and a kick returner in this game, it allowed George Holani to be a little bit fresher as a running back, took the pressure off of Torrey Horton not being available in this particular game. Anders, it reminds me a little bit when Seattle made the controversial move, but for some, when they brought in Percy Harvin. With Rashid Shaheed's speed on those jet sweeps and things like that, I remember going to that Seahawks Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos, and you could just see the way that Denver's safeties were so terrified of Percy Harvin and his speed on jet sweeps and things like that. And that just made it that much easier for Seattle for Russell Wilson to throw the ball, for Marshawn Lynch to run the ball. It just made things a lot easier. Rashid Shaheed did not have a statistically dominant performance in this game. I think he had 2 rushes for 20 yards, 1 catch for not much, 1 catch for 3 yards.
Yep.
And then again on his his returns, 3 returns in the punt game, or 3 returns in the kickoffs, is the long for 27 yards. And I don't think he had a punt return in this game, but still, his speed, you could feel it. And I think that's going to ultimately result in Seattle getting some big plays because of Rashid Shaheed, whether he's the one actually being the beneficiary. Statistically, Seattle's offense, 44 points scored, I think, is somewhat a reflection of Rashid Shaheed's addition in the trade deadline.
Well, and I love that comp because I think on the field, it's very similar types of players. I think the big difference is it really seems like there is a marked difference in who they are off the field, which is a good thing because of everything that's come out about Percy Harvin since all that went down. But Shaheed has had nothing but praise from both his teammates in New Orleans and already in Seattle too. So it's good to see. It's been a while since the Seahawks have had a weapon like that too. Now I realize you could point to DK Metcalf, but I'm just talking straight up burner. Right, you don't have to worry about getting him involved in the possession game, but just a straight up burner that takes the top off. So good to see. I agree with you on that. I think that's an underrated part of today as well, especially like you said, no Torrey Horton. All right, let's look ahead a little bit to the Rams because I think, to be honest, if I'm going to call it right now, I think these are the 2 best teams in the NFC. I know Detroit with their win today has something to say about that. You could say Green Bay. Maybe you throw in a couple other teams as well. Philadelphia's still there, but I really think that it's Seattle and LA that are proving to be the class of the NFC. So it's going to be a huge matchup here. Both are 7-2, both theoretically tied for the top of the NFC West division because they haven't played each other yet. First one is in LA, so it's going to be interesting to see. I want to hear what Rob's thoughts are on this matchup moving forward. And if he agrees with me, if these are the 2 best teams in the NFC, we'll talk about that next year on the other side on the Seahawks Squad Show. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. It keeps every game even more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back, Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Rob Rang with you. Just the two of us today. You'll hear from Corbin Smith a little bit later on Locked On Seahawks because he was at the game. He'll give you all the post-game locker room content that he got after talking with Mike McDonald as well. Rob and I are here just for immediate raw reaction from a fan perspective after watching the Seahawks win 44-22 over the Arizona Cardinals to sweep that series. The series that has yet to get started, though, in this division is the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. Rob, are these the two best teams in the NFC?
I think that they are. And I hate to mention our preseason predictions just because of the fact that I did think that the Seahawks were going to be very much on the track that they are. I had them at 13-4 in the season, but I had Seattle losing both the games against the Los Angeles Rams. I think that the Rams and the Seahawks entering the season were going to be two of the absolute best, with all due respect to, as you mentioned, the Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, and certainly the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. I think that there are some very good, very well-rounded teams in the NFC, but I do think that the most well-rounded teams are very much the Rams and the Seahawks. I think the Seattle is actually probably the most well-rounded team because the Rams have really struggled on special teams much of this season. But at the same time, I think that their defense and certainly the play of their quarterback, Matthew Stafford, has been as good as anybody. And with Matthew Stafford, with that running game, and the fact that they have two superstars at the wide receiver position in Puka Nacua, of course, and Devontae Adams, who I believe is leading the NFL in touchdown receptions at this point. Again, they just have so many weapons. And so I cannot wait for this upcoming week's game. I just think it's going to be a showdown that we may not only see the two games, as you kind of alluded to this year, obviously 2 games in the regular season. It feels like this could be a matchup that's destined for the postseason as well.
Yeah, and like the more I think about it, the more that these two teams kind of mirror each other a little bit because you got Sam Darnold and Matthew Stafford. I think both two quarterbacks are playing out of their minds right now. Different ways they got there, obviously. Stafford's already won his Super Bowl. He's on his second team. You got Sean McVay and Mike McDonald, who I think actually have a lot of similar traits in terms of how they coach a football team. Very, very well-coached teams. These guys are going against each other. Two defenses that are hitting their stride at the right time in different ways, I think. I think Jared Verse is a true superstar. You could point to a lot of guys on the Seahawks defense. Their secondary has played outstanding. You could talk about the blitz packages of Mike McDonald. But this is for me, where this game is where I'm watching the most in this game is actually on the coaching sideline, and obviously it'll reflect itself on the field. But for so long, we've seen Sean McVay outcoach whoever's been on the sideline for the Seahawks, whether it was Pete Carroll for the longest time, and even recently last year with Mike McDonald, of course, in his rookie year as a head coach. But I think that McDonald is now ready to meet his match in terms of on the other side of the ball, and I am fascinated by which team's going to look more prepared. This would be one of the first games in a while since probably Tampa Bay where it's really an even match talent-wise and just overall team vibes-wise with the Seahawks. I know Jacksonville had a better record in that game, but Seattle just is a step above that team. Obviously, same with Washington as well, and now with the Arizona Cardinals. It just seems like this is a kind of a big-time matchup. A lot of people thought the big-time matchup in the NFC West was actually today with San Francisco and LA proved that not to be the case. So I'm really, really excited for next week. Where on the field, what specific matchup are you going to be watching the most? Because for me, I think I'm going to lean towards the Seahawks secondary. We'll see if Julian Love comes back. And you mentioned just the two absolute weapons of Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams did go out injured today. I was, like I said, I was watching Red Zone for the second half, and I saw he kind of tweaked his back. Didn't seem super serious at all. He actually might have even gotten back in the game, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's something to monitor going into next week. But where does your eye go in terms of the matchup for the Seahawks versus the Rams?
Yeah, for me, it's going to go to the line of scrimmage. I definitely understand the, if you want to watch, the skill position talent, you got to watch the quarterbacks and you got to watch the receivers and the corners. Certainly Seattle's corners against the, Puka and Devontae are going to be, get your popcorn ready kind of a moment.
Oh, yeah.
But my eyes are always going to go to the line of scrimmage. And, certainly Jared Verse gets an awful lot of credit, and he is a stud. But to me, Braden Fisk inside is the one that when I've been fortunate enough to go to Los Angeles last couple of summers to visit the Rams, visit the Chargers, the 49ers and Cowboys, and Cowboys have their training camp in Oxnard, California. And just to see the way that Sean McVay prepares his team throughout training camp, and just the talent that squad has. I mean, they are truly among the elite programs in all of the NFL, and just how differently they do some things. I mean, Seahawks, of course, have invested some high draft choices and some trades at the linebacker position, whereas Los Angeles Rams, they typically are going with undrafted free agents at the inside linebacker position, and they've put some of their highest draft picks, either traded them. Their general manager Les Snead famously said, F all those picks and all that kind of stuff. So just a very different mentality than what, of course, John Schneider has taken. But I agree with you. I think that the way that both coaches operate. You're talking about two of the true, whiz kids, geniuses in all of the NFL with Sean McVay and with Mike McDonald, certainly. And so to me, this is as exciting as the NFL gets. I just cannot wait to see this particular game, because I think you were talking about a matchup where someone is going to win this game. Obviously every game somebody wins, but it felt like for most of the season so far, Anders, that the Seahawks, if they just didn't give the game away, I thought that their talent would win out. I think the Seahawks could play the best game of the season, and still the Rams are that damn good that they might be able to do it. Matthew Stafford in his performance against the 49ers today, where he's looking one way and throwing pinpoint passes the opposite way, just these no-look passes that are for touchdowns. I mean, he is just playing with as confidently as I've ever seen him, and that's a scary, scary thought for Seahawks fans. So again, I just cannot wait for this particular matchup, because I think it is going to be two true heavyweights duking it out.
Yeah, and I totally forgot, because you mentioned this earlier in the show, and it rung a bell, because I totally forgot that Sam Darnold's kind of last game of the year with the Vikings was last year against the Rams, and that was the last time that he's faced this team. So I get it. It's on a new team now, but I would love to see him exercise those demons, so to speak, and throw on a good show. Because he's going to have to. He's going to have to play extremely well for the Seahawks to win this game next week. Get out the popcorn, because it's going to be a great one. Rob, I appreciate you doing this with me. I know we normally have 3 people total, maybe even 4 sometimes, but we got some more airtime, you and I, today. So thanks for breaking this one down with me. Are you going to be on with Corbin a little bit later as well?
Remains to be seen. We'll see.
Okay.
A possibility, but because I'm not going to, unfortunately, be able to do Monday's show. And so if Corbin is able to knock out a show tonight for Monday, then great. If not, then I'm taking a day off and spend some time with friends and family. So I will have to be breaking down the Los Angeles Rams opponent, for the Seahawks, and later this week with Corbin.
I love it. I love it. You deserve it. You did awesome today. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in with us today. Seahawks win this one 44-22 over the Arizona Cardinals. Go into the game versus the Rams at 7-2. Should be a very, very interesting matchup. You guys can find all your Seahawks content here on Locked On Seahawks every single day. Corbin Smith's got you covered. whether it is with Rob, sometimes it's with Nick as well. So you guys check that out. We'll have another squad show a little bit later this week, talking about, looking ahead of the LA Rams, maybe a little bit looking back to Arizona. I want to get Corbin's thoughts on this game as well. But we'll talk to you guys a little bit later. Again, appreciate all of you. Have a good one. Go Seahawks. We'll talk to you next time.